You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, like Aloe or Allbirds, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and great marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business, making selling, and for shoppers, buying, simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. Nobody does online business better than Shopify. It's home of Shop Pay, the #1 checkout in the world. You can use it to boost conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going through to checkout. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income to upgrade your selling today. That's shopify.com/income.
The last thing you want to hear when you need your auto insurance most is a robot with countless irrelevant menu options. Which is why with USAA Auto Insurance, you'll get great service that is easy and reliable, all at the touch of a button. Get a quote today. Restrictions apply.
USAA. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the podcast, or welcome to the podcast. If this is your first time, I really appreciate you. I have to tell you, I've never appreciated you all more because you have been showing my new show, Tape Spaghetti, so much love, and I really appreciate it. I gave it a big, long plug on the last episode, so I'm not going to do that again, but I am going to give it a little one just in case you missed it. Tape Spaghetti is the new podcast with myself and Scott Marquardt, my business partner and buddy, where we dive into the weird side of music. We get into the stranger tales of music. We've talked about Charles Manson. We've talked about Tom DeLonge and his alien obsession. We've talked about a lot of random odd stuff, and people are really reacting positively to it. So if this is the first time you're hearing about it, please slide over wherever you're listening to this episode and check it out. It would really mean a lot to me. All right, that's enough of that. Let's get to the meat and potatoes here. Today, I'm talking to Steve Cobucci from Wolves at the Gate. Yeah, this is a good episode. And you know what? Him and I had something very, very odd happen on this episode. You'll see what I mean. I don't want to spoil it, but out of nowhere, it seemed that we were running on very, 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 very parallel tracks. And yeah, well, I won't spoil it because it's kind of fun, honestly. This is a really great episode. Steve was a great chat, and I think you're going to enjoy it. So without further ado, let's dive in. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Tone Mob Podcast, the show about guitar stuff, occasionally, sometimes. I'm your host, Blake Wyland. With me today, I have Steve Cobucci from Wolves at the Gate. What's going on, man?
Hey, man. How you doing?
Dude, we got it figured out. We're here. We're doing the thing.
Yep. We overcame technology, which is probably a lot of this podcast.
Sometimes it's like, I can't believe how smooth this thing is. It works so great. And yesterday was worse. Yesterday there was like connection issues. That's way worse than just like, oh, my input's in the wrong place. That's easy to figure out. But we're here, and that's all that matters ultimately. So I'm not really sure where to begin with you exactly, because you've been doing this for a long time. So this show, I do interview a lot of people from the metal world because that's relevant to my interests, but it is a general guitar-based audience. So maybe we start with a backstory for you, and then we'll just see where that leads. So when did you start playing guitar, and how did it lead to a career, which is kind of crazy?
Yeah, that is cool to think about. I think I first started playing guitar when I was like in 7th or 8th grade. That's like technically when it started. My mom had this like super old like classical guitar, the same nylon strings on it that I think were put on there in the 70s. So it was it wasn't great to play, and my mom like knows a little guitar, and I was like, "Can you teach me how to play?" And she's like, I could teach you how to play Kumbaya. And I was like, that's not really what I want to learn, but I guess I'll start somewhere.
Right.
And so that's how it started. And I just wanted an electric guitar so bad. And so I just got a job immediately after that. And the first guitar I owned was a Samick. I think it's like, yeah, right. Isn't it like Gibson, Epiphone, Samick is like, I think they're all in the same world.
I don't know if Samick Gibson's had a few brands they've grabbed and spun off, and I feel like Samick, I could be making this up in my brain, but I feel like they were part of the corporation at some point, but I'm pretty confident that they are not anymore. Yeah, I might have made that whole thing up. So,
Well, it was a really, really bad guitar. So sorry to any diehard Samick fans out there, but it was, I don't think it ever stayed in tune once, but it did the job. And so from there, it was, I just kind of just kept swapping guitars until I found something that I loved. So
what was that?
Really, well, growing up, one of my favorite bands was a band called Thrice, and their lead.
You don't say. Yeah. My favorite band of all time.
Oh, amazing.
Yes.
So their lead guitar player, Tepe, he played just, a lot of cool, like Les Paul customs. And Dustin, their singer, he played an SG. And so that was kind of like, that was where I wanted to get was a Gibson. And so, I kept playing, started getting better at guitar. And then I decided one summer, I'm going to work, and everything that I make is going towards getting like a real Gibson Les Paul. And I still have that guitar. It's sitting over there. Let me see if I can grab it, actually.
Grab it. I think we're about to have a bonding moment.
I can let everybody see I've been playing with its guts a little bit.
Hey.
That's amazing. these poor guitars.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
We have almost the same guitar.
That's so wild.
Are we the same person?
Possibly.
Who am I interviewing right now? What's going on?
I think we're going to need to do like a 23andMe later to see if we're related.
That's wild. Also, my first electric guitar, that I got for graduation. Then I also started on acoustic and desperately wanted an electric guitar so I could play Thrice songs. So
yeah. I got to adjust my focus, my camera. Like, who are you?
Oh, we confused it.
Yeah. Maybe it'll figure it out. It's getting there.
He's a blurry man for the rest of the podcast. You know what happened is
I showed it the guitar and it was just like, no, bring the guitar back.
Yeah, because now it's trying to focus on your telly.
Yeah, no, I need to get in the way of the telly.
There we go. There you go. Now we're clear. Okay. Yeah, that's hilarious. I mean, I've literally got a Thrice flag from their farewell tour hanging above my loft.
Nice.
Tepe has been on the show. Ed's been on the show.
Oh, wow.
Gotten to kind of know those guys and get to be buddies with them over the years. So that's been
awesome.
A trip. Wow. Anyway, wasn't expecting that. So continue on. Sorry for the interruption.
No, that was great. Yeah. And so, I mean, that was like I felt like if I got that guitar, like I could make whatever music I wanted to make, which obviously is kind of silly thinking about in retrospect, but they were such an inspiring band for me. And you know how it is when you get gear. It's like, as you get different pieces of gear or like pedals or amps in your like journey, they just unleash like different levels of inspiration. I remember my first tube amp. I remember the first time I got like real pedals that actually like weren't like dumb, but like useful pedals. And just the way that it like kind of continued to like inspire me creatively.
What was your first tube amp?
My first tube amp was a B52.
Yeah.
B100. Yeah.
I remember those. I kind of want one.
Yeah. it's pretty impressive how good it sounded for how affordable it was.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I wasn't sure what I wanted, but kind of like in my dream was to find, classic 5150 or, a dual rec. But at that time they were so expensive. And so, yeah, I had to settle for the B52.
Yeah.
But I remember the first time I got it was the first tube amp, and I was like, whoa, like this is, I felt like I was a better guitar player immediately because I'd only been playing out of like solid state amps. So
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, it was such a cool experience. And then from there, I was, I still have one of my original 6505s right next to me.
Oh, killer.
Sitting on a orange 212. It's, yeah, for some people, an actual amp and cabinet are archaic, but I do love them. I can't part with it. Doesn't matter. I don't think how far technology is going to go. I'm probably never going to get rid of those two. So.
Oh no, I love my tube amps. I've become a bit of a hybrid player. I use the Boss tube amp expanders when I'm recording a lot, but
cool.
Yeah, I love tube amps. Love them.
Yeah, I had what was really cool is I had a Mesa 290 that was like a tube power amp that I used a lot with like pedals or even amp modelers. Because it was a really cool way to use some of the more modern technology, but to run it through kind of your just classic, tube saturation. So that was like a cool hybrid thing that I did for a long time. But that Mesa 290 is so heavy. It's like stupidly heavy.
Okay.
Yeah. And so it's not very portable. And like a lot of the tube amps, does not do well being in a van and trailer its whole life either. So
right. So we're kind of jumping around a little bit, but so you got the B52, and you said you got your first like useful, cool pedals. What were they?
Your classic tube screamer. That was, those were like back in the days where like you couldn't really Google and find out what people are using, but you went to the show and you were like trying to peek above, or you're trying to watch the tech guys to see what they were doing. And, I just remember like going to Warped Tour and trying to get up in the front to see what guys' pedal boards were. And I noticed everybody had that tube screamer. So I grabbed the tube screamer. I grabbed a lot of different like overdrive pedals just to see what fit. Like I had this like Zach Wild overdrive that was pretty cool. Yeah, but beyond that, like I just stuck to like the DL4, Line 6 DL4, which was like, a lifesaver during that time that had all those different options and it had the loop. So like I used that thing to death and had the switches replaced like 4 or 5 times and like everybody else did. And then that pedal just became too expensive to own because of how much I had to fix it all the time. And so, yeah,
weirdly, I'm a huge pedal addict. I've got way too many. That tool chest back there is full of them. It's chaos in here. But I've always wanted the DL4 and I've never owned one for some weird, no real reason. I just never have. Yeah. Yeah.
I felt like everybody that we toured with or we played with back in the day, everyone had one. But like, it always had the problem of like the switch falling through the bottom of it. And yeah,
but they're so cool. Fun. And you get the minus the bear thing going on with like multiples and I remember seeing him do that and him pressing 2 pedals on 2 different pedals at the same time to get loops. And I was like, man, this guy's way more talented than I am. Yeah, this is next level for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny that journey that a lot of us went on, because I remember plugging into a tube amp for the first time and just being like, oh, I thought I like knew about guitar sound and feel, and I thought I knew what that was, and I didn't. And it wasn't anything crazy. It was like a tiny Terror, which is a great little amp, but it's not anything insane. And I was just playing it pretty loud at the store, and I was like, I have to rethink everything I thought I knew about the electric guitar now, which wasn't really that much at the time in retrospect. So
I had a Tiny Terror as well for a while. They're such cool little amps, and like, the Tiny Terror. How many watts is that?
I think it was 15, and you could switch it to 5 if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and it was still so loud.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't believe it. Yeah.
Well, and wattage is weird. I've come to learn. I've become friends with several amp manufacturers, but mostly Chris Benson over at Benson Amps, and
oh, cool.
He has helped me learn that like wattage, just because it says it's a certain amount of watts doesn't mean that it is. There's a small amp builder that makes great amps. I'm not gonna shout them out necessarily because it's like slightly weird, but they have a little like travel amp that sounds great and it's really cool, and everyone's like, that's way louder than it should be, and he's like, that's because it's actually more watts than it says it is.
Yeah, so maybe nobody even knows what watts mean.
Maybe a Tiny Terror is actually like 40 watts. I don't think so, but
I just remember when I first started playing guitar, I wanted as many as I could have.
Oh yeah. Yes, that's the answer. More watts. That's actually how my dad, because he's a guitar player, but he's not a gear guy at all and doesn't do anything heavy really. So when he bought me my first amp, again, that was for graduation, he was like, watts per dollar was what he was trying to do. So I got a Crate XTR 120 solid state, which I still have, and it's great for chuggy stuff. But that was how he's like, oh, it was 120 watts, and it was like $120. So I went with that.
Yeah, I still have my first combo amp. It's a PV Bandit.
Oh yeah. Those are cool.
I had no idea what it was. It was just the one I could afford, and I knew the name PV. And the little music store that was in my town, that was like one of 4 options of used amps, and so I just got that one. But it's actually really awesome. That's why I never got rid of it, because I'm like, man, there's something unique about the way that it sounds. And I got kids, so maybe that'll be theirs one day.
Yeah, the Bandits are cool. I like those little things. They're a fun amp for sure. So we're getting geary, which I like, because sometimes we get, like yesterday we got way lost in the sauce, and it was just like, I don't think we talked about guitars at all. But I want to get to the band. When did you start playing in bands and writing music and actually creating your own stuff?
So Wolves of the Gate is my first band.
Wow. Okay. Nice.
Yeah, which is it's cool in retrospect, but at the time it wasn't cool because I just wanted to be in bands so badly. I could just never get enough guys together. We were always like, it was like 3 guys, but like we didn't have a drummer, or 3 guys and didn't have a singer and a bassist. That's how it went for a long time. So I started writing music in high school, and it started off like kind of like punk. Like punk / like Thursday, I don't know if you know the band Thursday.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So it started off kind of like that style, and slowly morphed more into like, I would say, a more true like post-hardcore like vibe, because I was was really into Thrice, As Cities Burn. Those were like probably 2 of my biggest influences. Also, Under Oath was really big at that time too, so they had some influence on me as well. But yeah, so I basically just wrote songs for like 4 or 5 years, like through high school and into college, and just didn't have a band until my junior year of college. I finally met, which to me, I think is like one of the most important elements of any band, is just a really good drummer and a creative drummer.
Yep.
And that was always like the hard part to find, was somebody who was just really good at the drums. And I met our original drummer. His name's Ryan Connolly. He and I actually played soccer together in college, and that's how I met him. He came in and was a freshman, and we were just talking about music, and I was like, whoa, this guy likes good music. And then he told me he played drums, and I was like, okay,
you don't say.
You don't say, exactly. And I said, would you be down to listen to some demos I've written and write some drums on it? He said, sure. And it just took him a day, and he came by my house and, wrote drums to 5 songs and just played them just like, he didn't even practice them. He just had it memorized in his head. He was a freak.
Wow.
And so that kind of like, that got me so excited. And then that was like all the like impulse I needed to like just go find who else I could find to like start a band with.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I remember when you said the drums are so important, and that's totally true, especially for any kind of rock. I remember when I was with my old band, it was kind of like a 90s alternative styled thing. And we were like, I wonder what this track sounds like without the drums. Just for some stupid reason, we muted the drum track. Like, it ruined the whole song. It was terrible without the drums. It was still, we were happy with the song and the structure and everything, and the tones were cool. But we were just like, mute. Oh, turn those back on. That was rough.
Yep.
Because then you realize how much everything plays off of it. And like maybe somebody plays a little behind the beat, or somebody's, you know, and then if without it there as that kind of signifier, you don't know where anything is. It all just sounds like a mishmash at times.
Yeah. And I think for me, you know, I'd been writing I'd probably, leading up to that point, I probably had like 40 or 40 some odd songs. And I just thought they were all bad because it was just guitar that I like recorded, you know, and I'm like, and I would listen to it. And I'm like, I think this is cool, but like, it also just doesn't sound great. I'm like, and then when I heard, you know, drums to it, it just came alive in a totally different way. And it actually just gave me belief, actually, like, man, maybe I could make something that people would like. Cause I was just so used to the only other drummers I'd played with before were not, they didn't have a sort of like that energy and like angst and, I don't know, like, aggressive, like take on the drums that I felt like our music needed. And Ryan, our original drummer, he was just so busy and fast, and it was just fun and youthful. And so, yeah, it turned out cool for its time.
Nice. So from there, I mean, how long was it before you were playing shows or recording?
Yeah, there wasn't a long period of time in between when, I mean, he came in and had written drums to like those 5 songs. And I literally, a good friend of mine lived down the street, and he was a bassist. Ben, he's still our bassist to this day. And I literally put down my guitar after like Ryan and I had like jammed, and I said, hey, I'll be right back. And went down to Ben's house, and I said, hey, I'm starting a band. I want you to play bass in it. He goes, okay, when did you start a band? I was like, don't worry about it, you know,
right now.
And yeah, right now. And so like over the course of like maybe that week, I got Ben in, and our original guitar player, Jeremy. And we didn't have a vocalist. I wanted somebody who was going to scream and sing. And I had written like vocals and lyrics to all the songs, and the guys were like, well, let's just hear it. You know, what's your idea? Because I would just be like singing it quietly, you know, not into a microphone while we were playing, because I was just so like shy. And they were like, well, after they heard, like, why don't you just be the singer? I'm like, I'll do it until we find a real singer. And then that was in 2008.
Right.
But so we just started playing like a bunch of house shows. And there was a guy who was in a local band. His name was Colin. He came and watched our first show. And we definitely needed like a guy who could scream, because I couldn't scream. I was just singing. And then there would be like some gaps where there should be screaming.
Right.
And and he came up to me and goes, hey, you need a screamer. And I said, yeah, we do. I was like, do you know anybody? He goes, yeah, me. I'll do it. And I was like, okay, cool. That's how the band started.
That's awesome. Yeah, me.
Yep. So no masterminding, no like really smart planning. It was just guys playing music, and he liked it. And so just the way it all came together, it was probably just the way it was supposed to.
Mm-hmm. So at what point did you know, or did you think, this is what I'm going to do? This is my thing. This is how I'm going to make a living.
Well, that last phrase, how I'm going to make a living. I was a lot more sure about everything else you said, except for that last part.
Okay. I think we're all feeling that right now in every career field at the moment.
Yeah. Honestly, everything except that last phrase. When I met Ryan and he played drums to the song, I was like, I think I can finally do this, and like really try. Because I really tried for a long time, but just didn't have the musicians to do it. And now that I did, and guys that I was good friends with and had good relationships with, and we're all on the same page together as well. So it was really from there. And we never really had a belief that we would like really do anything big, but the dream for us, we had like two really simple dreams. We wanted to record in a real studio, and we wanted to go on tour. That was it. If we could do both of those things, we will have felt like we accomplished our dream. And so, and those things happened before we got signed. And so we already felt like, man, this was so cool that we got to do this. And we made like a real album and pressed it and kind of thought, well, let's just do this. And if it works, then we'll keep going. And if not, then we'll quit. And that was the EP that Solid State Records saw and offered us a contract. And then the rest was history, I guess.
Wow. So that feel a little bit surreal when that finally happened, because you're like, I just want to do. I had similar goals. I didn't want to tour. That's one thing. That's how I knew I wasn't going to be a professional musician. I was like, I hate road trips so much. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I love playing. I love live music. But man, I'm not built for the road. That's not my thing.
Yeah, you need that residency. You need that residency at a casino or something where you're there for 6 months.
Exactly. And I knew I didn't have that bone in my body, and so that kind of erased that as a possibility, and therefore it erased doing anything in music at all in my brain, which in retrospect was really dumb, because there's a million other things you can do and still be involved in music in some capacity. I just didn't think about it like that. But similarly, I was like, I just want to get in a real studio and make a real record. And that's good enough for me. I don't even care if anybody hears it, as long as I get to do it.
Yeah. And part of it too is like the music world is like so small when you start, at least your perspective of it. 'Cause you just don't even know, like a phrase I say all the time is, you don't know what you don't know. And so much of that is like the music business, because there's so many things that we learned along the way that like I wish we knew beforehand, but you don't know what you don't know, even the idea of like, we couldn't wait to tour. And then you find out what touring is. You're like, oh, okay, this is really hard. And some guys didn't want to tour after they realized what it was, kind of like what you were saying. Also being in everyone was excited about being in the studio and finally getting to do that. But then there's also the thought of like, we're here for a month and you're basically working like 10-hour days and being up late, 10, 12-hour days.
Oh, easily.
And having to be engaged, like, everyone was like, I'm going to be in there the whole time. Like, I'm never going to leave. And, like, I want to soak in every moment of it. And then guys are like bored, like 2 hours into a recording session because you're just tuning guitars. So it's like, there is the part of all that it seems really awesome in theory, because you just watch a bunch of like band documentaries and you think it's going to be like a really cool montage. But they're just not showing you like 90% of what the rest of like recording the studio is like, or touring, which is just driving.
Right.
And being
the studio stuff, that's part of why I liked, well, not just me, but I'm sure most of us, I liked that Beatles documentary so much, where some people were like, it's so long. I'm like, but that's what it's really like. I mean, at the highest level of the time, but still that when they're like kind of, griping at each other, and that's like half of it, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's hard. It is hard. And it's hard trying to make something that everybody's passionate about and everyone has opinions about, and also trying to fight ego. like we're not really like everybody has, it doesn't really matter what kind of band you are, but even for our band, like we had to fight ego of like who recorded what part, does it really matter, who did what, does it really matter if your idea made it, if it's not best for the song? Does it really matter that everyone knows it was your idea or not your idea? Kind of having to work through all that stuff. And I mean, a lot of that Beatles documentary deals with a lot of ego too, which you can see. In some ways it can make great music, and in other ways it can ruin music too.
Hey, Rocky.
What's up, Vincent?
Did you hear about the latest?
Latest what?
The latest drop from Maris. It's totally insane.
No, tell me more.
Maris just released Enzo X.
What's that?
Enzo X is a supernova expansion from the original Enzo into the highest quality and most flexible studio synthesizer ever created in a pedal format.
Whoa!
Enzo X combines 5 synth types, 5 drives, 3 reverbs, and 5 modulations. It also includes a full 2.5 second stereo delay, all in one pedal.
That sounds hard to use.
It's not. The UI is from the same family as the Mercury X and the LVX. It's super easy to dive in and see exactly what you are tweaking in real time.
Oh, I see. It's right there on the screen.
Yep.
Is it this for guitars, though?
Nope. You can plug almost anything into the Enzo X, including your MIDI controller.
That sounds incredible. Where do I get it?
You can pick up Enzo X online at maris.us or at any of their fine retailers across the globe.
Did you just say across the globe?
They know what I meant.
Wait, are we getting paid for this?
I'm still waiting on that cash money from last time.
He better at least give us pizza for dinner.
I'm not giving him his Enzo X back until he does.
For more information, make sure you check out maris.us, and apparently I have to go order a pizza. How exactly do artists get their music on Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, Tidal, all these services? How in the world do you get your music there? Well, in the past, you had to use something called a record label. But these days, you can use DistroKid. DistroKid is the absolute easiest way to get your music up on streaming services, and it's the most affordable way to do so. Not only do plans start at $22.99 for the entire year, that's less than $2 a month, DistroKid also does not take a cut of your streaming revenue, unlike some other services out there. Even better if you sign up by going to tonemob.com/distrokid. That's tonemob.com/distrokid. One more time, that's tonemob.com/distrokid. You'll get 30% off. That's right, 30% off their already extremely reasonable prices. So go to tonemob.com/distrokid and get your music out there. We are brought to you today by Sweetwater, specifically the Gear Exchange. You may have heard about this. This is a place where you can go to buy and sell your used gear. Maybe you got a pedal over there that's just kind of collecting dust. Maybe there's something you've been eyeing from the Sweetwater catalog. Well, right now is a great time to turn that unused gear into something you're actually going to use. Even better, if you sell on the Gear Exchange, you can keep 100% of the sale as long as you choose a Sweetwater gift card as your payout method. That is not too shabby because, let's be honest, most of this buying and selling we do is just to fund new gear purchases, and that is a great way to reach a wide variety of customers and keep 100% in your pocket, or rather on your pedal board. So go check out the Sweetwater Gear Exchange and turn that unused gear into something that's actually going to help you write that next huge riff. On that record I was talking about with my old band, I had a song and a riff that was super cool. Everybody liked it. And we hadn't really completed it by the time we were going into the studio. And that ego thing, I like to think that I'm pretty open and approachable and open to different ideas and things. But when we were going through the list of songs we were recording, like, oh, we're going to do this part for this one. And since we're all already be set up for that, we'll do this part and this part because it's kind of similar. And we got to that song. And I was like, okay, and I'm going to set up for this, and I'm getting ready to do this kind of big riffy part. And everyone's like, I can tell it's just awkward. I'm like, what's going on? And they were like, we don't think that song is going to go on the record. And I was like, guys, why did you wait until now to say that you didn't think it should go on the record? They were right. It didn't really fit. It was very out of place on that. It was cool, but it was very out of place. And I wasn't really hurt that it wasn't going to go on the record. I was more like, why didn't you tell me sooner? Because I've been like working on this for a while now. Yeah. And now that it's time to record and I'm ready to do it, we're not going to do it. Like I wouldn't have wasted my time in a type of thing. But it was a little bit of it wasn't that they were trying to be secretive or manipulative or anything. It was they were like scared to hurt my feelings. You know, and I'm like, oh, my feelings have been less hurt 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
Well, I think that's part of what you have to learn being creative and being in a band also is how to communicate with one another. You know, I mean, a lot of guys in bands are starting bands as teenagers and you like, there's so many like life skills you haven't even learned, you know, of like how to communicate or even how to even understand your own feelings or your thoughts or your emotions. And, you know, thankfully, we've never had any big blow-ups, you know, in our band, but like we've had to work through all that stuff and it's hard. And a lot of times, you know, it happens either when things are really tough on the road or it happens when you're in the studio because everybody's thinking about, you know, this thing we're trying to create. And everybody wants it to represent them, you know. And the thing that we've really tried to fight for over the years is Wolves of the Gate is Wolves of the Gate. Doesn't matter who wrote what. It doesn't matter who sang, tracked, or did what. If this is what we want it to be, it's us. And it's not, you know, we win and lose together. So we want to really make sure we're seeing it as like a together thing that we're doing because we are a band, you know. But it takes time to like really shape and mold that and to mature, you know, as well. So,
yeah, I mean, the amount of I mean, I think my foundations are still pretty much the same, but just thinking back to even my mid-20s to now, how much I've changed my mind on different things. It's pretty, and for the better, I think, for the most part. You know, I'm definitely more open to things than I was back then. And then the difference from teenager to mid-20s was extreme. So like you said, everybody's starting bands as teenagers and like, cool, we're going to do this thing. And it's actually pretty crazy that anything gets done at all.
Yeah, I know. I know. These are the same people that are like making, you know, your food take forever to come out at Burger King and, you know, can't do normal jobs.
I mean, you know, at the same time I'm trying to write quote unquote serious music, I'm also filming my buddies in shopping carts rolling down hills. You know, it's not.
Yeah, I know. I know that is the funny thing. Yeah. You just like conjured like a dozen memories from tour of like wanting to be taken seriously for like as artists and musicians, but then thinking about like the way that we act like idiots, like just like you said, doing bombs on shopping carts and pranking each other, you know. So yeah, that's hilarious.
And I think unfortunately, maybe it's a musician thing, maybe specifically a rock musician thing, but like there's always an element of tomfoolery afoot.
Yeah, I mean,
never goes away.
I think there's two. You're drawn to that kind of music because there's kind of something spunky inside of you, and yeah, it's gonna make its way out apart from your music as well.
Yes, absolutely. So when you were growing up, we kind of leapt to adolescent/teenager, but when you were growing up, you said your mom played. What kind of music were you exposed to at that time?
It's really hard to describe. I mean, a lot of it was like kids music. Like my mom had a bunch of old records. and I remember, but they were like kids songs, but I always loved music. It didn't matter. Like she had an old record player and these like cool, vintage speakers, and I would just literally stick my ear next to it because I just wanted to hear whatever I was hearing as close as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I started getting older, I'm trying to think like how, well, I guess the way that I even found my own taste in music began through classic rock. So my dad owned a construction company, and a lot of those guys, they just listen to the radio, they listen to classic rock. And so that's where I hear Led Zeppelin. And so that kind of, they were kind of the band that I think kind of started everything for me. So I just started listening to them. And then from there, you find Metallica, then I found like Green Day, then I found Nirvana. And these are all bands that could get played on the radio. But then through that, it was really friends, because I would, tell my friends the music I listened to, and it was friends who started showing me more underground music. Because like nobody in my family, not my brother liked like pop music and, top 40 stuff. So even me liking Led Zeppelin was like crazy to him. But I was like, just one of the greatest rock bands ever. No big deal. But yeah, and that's where I started getting exposed to, more like alternative music, which is sort of just the natural progression. Once you hit like Metallica and Nirvana, you kind of hit like these edges of like, this is about as far as the radio can take you. And if you have more interest, you're going to need to go somewhere else. And that's what happened for me, is I had, people showing me, at that time, Thursday was a local band,
Oh, wow.
they're from New Jersey, where I'm from. And so I'd heard murmurings about them, about My Chemical Romance, is there another New Jersey band? And so through that, you just start finding, I found this website called Punk Rock Vids, which I don't know, but it's basically, they just posted live videos of all these underground bands. And that's how I found so many bands. From there, it was game over. I was in deep. So
yeah, for me, it was somewhat similar with finding rock, because my parents I grew up listening to a lot of country, 90s country and like old outlaw country and stuff. And I still love that stuff to this day, like with a deep passion. But it didn't feel, until I got older, it didn't feel like mine. I was like, that's theirs. Where's my stuff? I can't listen to the same thing my parents do. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I didn't actively think that, but I think in the back of my brain, that's what was going on. And so I found the rock radio. Similarly, there was a couple alternative stations here in the Portland area. So there was a lot of different stuff being played. And I remember a lot of the nu metal stuff, because it was because I did like Green Day, I did like Blink-182, I did like Nirvana and Metallica. I loved all that stuff, but I was always trying to get a little more. It's like, no, I need a little more. And then I remember Korn, and I was like, well, this is cool and weird, and like, what is he doing with his voice? You can do that. That's And System of a Down, Toxicity was like a big breaking point for me. I was like, oh, you can do things like that too. That's crazy. And then finding it was actually like skateboard magazines. Skateboard magazines were I remember that's the first time I knew anything about Thrice. They had a ad in Slap Skateboard magazine, and I was like, Thrice, that's a weird name. I wonder what that's about, and didn't think much of it. And then, somebody's older brother at some point, it's like, have you heard Thrice? I was like, oh, I've heard of them. Yeah. And it just completely changed. It was like just this huge blend of all the things I was into.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what they did for me too, it was like melodic Metallica, modern, take on those sorts of things, but also was a little grungy in some senses, and then had like screams, and then it was heavy. Yeah. I mean, I heard Deadbolt. And I was like, this is so cool. And then I went back and listened to Identity Crisis, and then I was hooked.
Somehow it was just, this is the CD swapping and CD burning generation.
Mm-hmm.
So somehow I had Identity Crisis and Artist in the Ambulance, and I didn't know about Deadfault because I didn't.
Amazing.
Yeah. And then somebody's like, there's another record. I'm like, there is? Where is it? I got to have it now. And then, that totally changed everything.
Yeah, and Illusion of Safety is so good. I mean, like Identity Crisis, there's a couple songs that, I can't even recall, but Illusion of Safety was so good. And then lyrically too, they were just so different. And that was one of the things that I was drawn to as well.
Big time.
Because one of the things that I never was able to connect with was a lot of bands' lyrics. Because they either felt too commercial or they felt like too like abstract. That like I liked hearing people's perspective and like a particular sort of thought, and I think that's something Dustin's always been really good at, is conveying a particular message in each one of his songs or expressing something. So that was another thing that I was drawn to, and that's also why I was drawn to Thursday, because his lyrics, like he was always like very clear about what he wanted to sing about, which I thought was cool. And then yeah. But I forgot about, there was a lot of new metal that I was influenced by too. Like you said, Korn, Limp Bizkit was another band I remember hearing.
I saw that Deftones poster back there.
Yeah.
But
Deftones.
Yeah.
I mean, especially like Deftones and Limp Bizkit, it was like clear, identifiable riffs, just meaty, chunky riffs. Like
it had been a while.
I can't remember a single word from any Limp Bizkit music at all, but the riffs. Wes Borland is just
amazing.
He's a monster, and so innovative and creative. And anybody that would knock on that band and likes guitar at all needs to like just revisit and just listen to his guitar playing, because he was doing stuff decades ago that bands are still doing today, or trying to reinvent almost. So yeah, really cool.
Hello there. I'd like to introduce you to your new best friend, the Chase Bliss Audio Lossy. Lossy is a collaboration between Chase Bliss and Good Hertz. It's meant to give you some control over those weird digital artifacts that come with very compressed audio. You're hearing it right now. All the changes that are taking place are strictly coming from my playing dynamics. I'm just interacting with the pedal and letting it do its thing. In some true stereo goodness. If you'd like some more details about Lossy, I'd invite you to head over to chaseblissaudio.com. I think you're gonna like what you find.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
That's your money saying it's time for a McDonald's run. Because with new McValue at McDonald's, you get more than you expect. Like buy a 6-piece McNuggets and add a McChicken for just $1. Your money says let's go. Get more than you expect with new McValue. Prices and participation may vary. Valid for item of equal or lesser value.
That was one of the moments. I didn't really realize it at the time because I wasn't even playing yet. But that was one of the moments when a guitar sound really grabbed me. It was just that first riff on Break Stuff. Yeah. It's so simple. It's so easy. But wow, does it work? It's so good, so thick.
A great recording. And that's where I started to notice recordings too, because even during that new metal era, there were a lot of bands that had big budget recordings that didn't sound great. And all the bands that I'd listened to, like Metallica and Nirvana, the recordings were good for what they were at that time, but like they hadn't, they were a bit dated. And I started getting into like the sonics of things, hearing like great guitar tone. And that was one of the ones I remember. It's like, whoa, those guitars sound huge. And I know that Thrice isn't crazy about their mix on Artist in the Ambulance, but I remember hearing that going like, wow, this sounds so meaty. Like this is not like anything else I've ever heard before sonically.
Yeah. At the risk of turning this into the Thrice Fanboy podcast, which it has done a few times over the years. What did you think of the re-recording of Artist in the Ambulance?
I thought it was fun. Like, I had to like, there's the purists that'll be upset. Being a musician, I think, is helpful to understand that they're just doing something they want to do. There might have been like, monetary reasons to do some of that as well. But like, if that's what they got to do to like make a living and keep going, then that's fine with me. But I thought it was cool to hear the men version of, the band rather than the young boys, who tracked those songs 20 years ago. So yeah, I thought it was cool, and I thought it was unique, and it felt more like a live recording, which I think was cool.
Yeah.
And so I'll always have the original, album to go to, but it was a fun listen for me.
Yeah. I thought the guest spots were really well done, and they picked good people and put them in good places. And
I thought that was a cool idea.
Yeah. And then I also liked, just as a big fan, it was like, it sounded like I expected it to. When I heard that's what they were doing, I was like, oh yeah, it's going to be a little more open. It's going to be a little less compressed. There's a little less gain on the guitars. It's just a little more in line with that. And that was something I probably wouldn't have appreciated that much as a younger guy. But Visu was I have to give that record credit with that being the record that made my mind more open to not everything has to be heavy all the time.
Yeah.
Because I loved that record when it dropped, but it was so different than anything they had done before and anything else that I was listening to. I had to like give myself permission to like things that weren't that heavy, which was kind of stupid in retrospect. But
yeah, well, it really depends on like where you're coming from musically too. Thankfully for me, like I wasn't ever a part of like a particular type of scene. I just liked so much almost every iteration that essentially the rock umbrella could touch, or metal, I was able to find an appreciation for. And so when they created that album, it just felt deep, and I think that's what I liked about it, was it just felt like it had a lot of depth and meaning. And I was always just drawn to music like that I could sit in, and because I can't tell you how many albums I bought that I listened to once and it was over, I was like, I didn't really feel compelled to listen to it again, or like, yeah, that song's all right. But I've listened through that album many times, and it's special when bands can create something like that, and that's why, bands, you're in a band is because you want to make something special like that for other people,
Yeah, 100%. So segueing back to gear stuff a little bit, because I was just thinking about this. We talked a lot about the gear of the time and like our personal tastes, but how has that evolved for you into modern times with all this new stuff that's available, all these digital things? You kind of talked about the hybrid rig a little bit, but there's so many possibilities now. How do you approach it both on tour and in the studio?
Yeah. And so, it definitely complicated things for a while. And I remember I had so many, being a young band. So this is like back in 2012, 2013. We're a young band, we're doing a bunch of, full US tours. We don't have any crew. We're doing everything, we're DIY for everything. And if an amp goes down, that's it. And I just kept having problems with the 6505. I'd swap it out. I'd have backups. The wiring would get loose. It's like the same things that would happen. And I just couldn't, we couldn't afford to hire a crew, and we also couldn't afford to have like 3, heads in the back of the trailer,
Mm-hmm.
and have, backups for everybody. And we had to start looking for other options. And that's when the Axe Effects was getting popular. And I really was against the idea of it until I ran into, other musicians who were like, so it was really the guys in Unearth. We were on tour with them, and I couldn't believe that they were using, they weren't using tube amps, and these guys are players. I mean, tone in the hands types of guys, and the way that it sounded, I was like, what am I holding on to? Like this, purist mentality, especially because it wasn't feasible for us to keep touring, and it was expensive. And also it was messing up shows. Your amp goes down, what do now we're playing mono, we're not even in stereo anymore. It's like we're going back to the 60s or 50s or whatever.
Not in a good way.
Yeah, not in a good way. No. Yeah. And so that's what kind of put me on the quest of well, how can I use these these amp modelers as a tool but still create something that isn't completely synthetic feeling. And that's where, I got the idea of using a tube power amp. And I've had a lot of different iterations of that sort of thing over the years. And so really live, it's all amp modelers just because of the ease. And, doing fly dates, we've done plenty of fly dates where there's supposed to be a backline and you show up and they don't have the amp you asked for. And then you're dialing I hate the anxiety, the gear anxiety of wanting to make sure everything works and not be distracted by the tone sounding so off, because a lot of performance is muscle memory, and if when you're playing, you're just distracted by the guitar tone because it's just not what you want it to be. For me as a singer, let alone a guitar player, it distracts me, and I want to be focused on performing well. And I want to eliminate those distractions because, particularly as a singer, I have I'm hyper aware of the fact that people don't want to hear a bad singer live. It's the worst. And I feel responsible to just give people my best. And I want to eliminate distractions, because at the end of the day, even if somebody's, you can be a fan and love heavy music, but not really care about guitar stuff. Everyone's listening to vocals, unless you're playing the guitar solo. And so wanting to make sure I had an appropriate respect for that instrument, because I was so guitar focused for years. And I wanted to be a good singer, but I was just so focused on guitar that I think sometimes vocals suffered. And so that's what I kind of went off on a bit of a rabbit trail, but that's what got me into using amp modelers was just wanting to put on a good show. And also we have such a DIY mentality, it's you don't have to have a tech, for a computer.
Right.
So.
Yeah. And so you're still using the Axe Effects, or have you tried any of the other ones?
No, I've been through them all. So the Axe Effects, I was on the Axe Effects. And then from there, I moved to the Kemper, and I was using the Kemper Power Stage, which had its own built-in power amp. And then I've been struggling to depart from it because I have the Quad Cortex. I bought that as well. It sounds awesome, but there's certain things that I can't, there's things about that I like about both. And so I'm on the fence in regards to live shows. But that's kind of where I've landed. Yeah. With live. And then for studio stuff, it's really only been the last couple records that we haven't done. Well, our last record, Eulogies, we just mic'd up a cab. It was just classic sort of old school mentality. And we were really happy with those results. But this most recent stuff, I've spent years like dialing in patches, and we're trying to go for a different approach. Also just trying to be more cost effective, because getting into studio rates, budgets, the whole music industry dollar amount is shrinking, but the demand doesn't, and so you have to find ways to be creative. And so we're trying in the box solutions for guitars currently. We'll see if we stick with it.
Mm-hmm. Well, the hybrid situation I've landed on is mostly because like the amount of content that I have to make. If I had to do it like I used to with always miking cabs, I mean, people who've never done that before, it takes a long time. Even if you've played that same amp in the same situation with the same mic, whatever you're trying to do that day, especially like if you're doing a different pedal demo or something where it's a completely different sound, that solution you stumbled upon may not work again.
Nope.
And so what I've ran into that I really like doing is running the tube amp expander direct and playing with IRs in the box. Not even I use a setting on there where I have no cab sim loaded on the tube expander itself, so I can swap them in and out in the box. And I've got hundreds and hundreds of them to try, maybe thousands. I don't know, gigabytes and gigabytes of different cab sims. But then what's great about the tube amp expander, in my opinion, as somebody who does like the old school approach as well, is you can do both. You can run it out to a cab and run it direct, and mic your cab up and get that sound that you're looking for and that feeling that you're looking for when you're playing it, and have the direct solutions as well. So it's a little bit of a have your cake and eat it too situation. I'm a huge fan of those things. Yeah.
And that's very similar to what we do live, because I still like, we're on ears, but like I still like having stage volume, you know, because also, we're not playing arenas. So there's still people in the front row that need like stage volume. You know?
Oh man, that drives me crazy when there's no stage volume at a rock show in like a medium-sized club. It's like,
Yeah, it's like the mains weren't made for that, No. They were made to like supplement probably some of the guitars and some of the bass and some, and obviously a lot of the drums, but they're blending the mains for, your 600-700 cap rooms. They can blend the live sound and the mic'd sound. But yeah, I mean, there's probably a sound guy out there that's just like, no, you're dumb, you shouldn't do it that way. But that's how I'm
even
playing.
If you were doing it the right way, quote unquote, there would be a sound guy out there telling you you're doing it wrong. That's what they're there for.
Yeah.
I love the sound guys. I also like to give you guys crap. It's fun. You guys are you guys are important. Integral.
Yeah.
Integral? I didn't say that right. Integral. There we go. That's the word.
Yeah.
That's how you say it. Wow, man, this has flown by. We are knocking on the door of an hour here, and I still have 2 classic questions I like to ask everybody, especially people from the East Coast. It's actually a little bit of foreshadowing.
All right.
But before I do that, I like to give the guests a chance to take the floor, shout out anybody you want to shout out, plug anything you want to plug. The floor is yours now. You're talking to a few thousand people, so go for it.
Well, gear. Thank you, Fender. Man.
Nice.
Fender, love Fender guitars. Been playing them for a long time. Ever since I got my first baritone, that was a game changer for me.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, I don't have much to plug. We got a new album coming out. It's called Wasteland. Very excited about that album, and it is just part of a journey. So hopefully people buckle up and get ready for something a little bit different from us. If you know us, and if you don't know us, now's the time to check us out. And if you liked any of the bands that I mentioned along the way, then you might like our music. So
there you go. Very nice. Very nice. All right. First of the classic questions. What is your favorite Boss pedal?
It's easy. Metal Zone.
Yeah. You gotta love it.
I had one. I want to buy one. I obviously sold it a long time ago, but I feel like I've played with some plugins that, replicate it, but like I just want one to have it, because sometimes you just need something that sounds disgusting,
Yeah. Oh yeah. You got to have the metal zone. I've got 2. I got a murdered out one around here somewhere. Boss hooked me up with a black on black metal zone. And I was like, Aaron, you are the most beautiful man ever. I could never ask for anything more than a murdered out metal zone. This is so cool.
I love that.
Okay. The final question, and this is where the East Coast thing comes in here. What is your favorite kind of pizza?
It is cheese.
Cheese
Pizza.
That's how I grade my if I've never been somewhere and they offer a cheese slice, that's how I like to see if they can get that right, then they can probably do everything else pretty well too.
Yeah, like the reason, there are 2 other types of there's like 2 other pizzas that I absolutely love, but like I would only get them in one place.
Okay.
One is it's an eggplant parmesan pizza. It's at Nick's Pizza in Bergenfield, New Jersey, where I grew up.
Okay.
I've tried to get it other places, and it is abysmal. They just make it incredible. And also, this is probably weird for some people. I'm Italian, so it's not weird for me, but it's called broccoli rabe pizza. It's basically like a bitter broccoli. And those are the ones that I would get those 2 pies and cheese pie like on Fridays, like religiously almost. But yeah, by and large, cheese.
And Nick's Pizza is the place to go for all of your fine pizza needs.
Yeah, Nick's Pizza. Looks like my camera is tired.
Well, that's okay. We're right at the end of the episode anyway, so.
I think my camera said, hey, we're done.
We're done. Yeah. I guess we're done with the main episode. Don't worry, though, because we were going to get into Patreon, and Patreon's mostly just audio, so it's okay.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, Steve, thanks for hanging out, and thanks for nerding out. That was a great conversation. It's always nice to meet a fellow kindred spirit, and I appreciate you taking the time.
Likewise. Thanks, man.
Yep. All right, everybody, we're going to get out of here. For Steve, this is Blake, and as always, folks, good luck and good tones. Alrighty, folks, I hope you enjoyed that episode as much as I enjoyed recording it. Steve and I, of course, had a lot more shenanigans occur over on Patreon. So if you like this show, if you like what I do, please consider supporting me over there, where for just $5 a month, it's been $5 a month since day one, people. And if I don't have to change it, I'm not going to. As long as these processing fees don't get out of control. You know how it is. Anyway, it's still just $5 a month, and you get access to the ad-free feed and the bonus episodes every single week. So thank you to everyone who does that. And if you can't do it, I totally get it. Please share this episode with somebody, though. That moves the needle in a huge way. It helps me out a lot, and it really, 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 really means a lot to me. So thank you so much to everybody who's been supporting the show for so long. And here's another quick one. Go check out Tape Spaghetti. You're done with this episode now. You need more blabbering. The workday's still going. Go check it out and let me know what you think of that show. It's different than this one, but yet familiar. All right, folks, have a good one, and I will talk to you on the internet very soon.